Do we have buh? What does buh even mean? You guys tell me that. But anyway, you can tell me that a little bit later because it's finally time today to do the news. A little bit of a different approach today. I actually wanted to test everything here. Before we got into this, there was kind of a big patch, actually. A lot of things changed. Some really exciting stuff, actually. You know, we haven't even got to the Spear beta yet, but there's a couple of things coming back for Elementalist, like Fresh Air Staff and a couple of the Fresh Air builds, too. Some really big last-minute improvements to Firebrand, too, which I think are incredibly impactful. Big reworks to Epoch and Sarus as well. The challenge mode has been nerfed. Some really exciting stuff. This is a big patch, actually. Kind of came out of nowhere. I was expecting it to, of course, just be the regular balance patch, which was fairly uninteresting, if I'm being completely honest. Not a lot of crazy stuff going on in there. But actually, we've got ourselves some surprises in here as well, kind of across the game here. And of course, the PvP reward restructure stuff as well. Some really big changes there. Look, I think we just got to get into it. If I get sidetracked on all the little surprise we got here, then we're not going to be able to get anything done. So we might as well get into it. So first of all, basically, Spear beta event coming up June 27th. Definitely check that out. That's going to be a lot of fun, actually. The spears look awesome. We've already seen those things. Pretty epic content there as well. Next up is actually a really crazy change here. Aqua breathers have now been modified a little bit, so you can hide or unhide them as well. Of course, they still work just fine. But also, they've added a gold sink, okay? They've added account-wide progression in terms of underwater infusions, swim speed infusions. It's a big gold sink. I think that's the intention of it, but a little bit of account-wide progression. Here is the deal. You can now purchase swim speed infusions, and you can get one that kind of syncs with your account, right? So you can buy this same infusion for every single character, and it will automatically upgrade to the kind of like account-wide unlock swim speed infusion that you've got. So you have to buy the infusion on all your characters, but it's pretty cheap, right? But it will automatically upgrade to the highest version you've got. It's a little bit like the Fractal God style system. So like this item is going to scale. I think this is kind of interesting because you know what they're doing here? I think it's a little bit of a tech demo for account-wide agony, right? Or like other systems like that. So in other words, you could have an infusion or multiple infusions that will upgrade on your other characters with like a single purchase, right? That's kind of what this smells off to me, because it's a pretty innocuous, pretty irrelevant system. Like, yeah, you can swim like 30% faster or whatever. Who cares? It doesn't really matter. It's a gold sink if you're into that sort of thing. You want to have that kind of completionist experience. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you like that, then you like that. That can be fun 100%. But I do think this is a little bit of an experiment, testing this technology of having these items automatically upgrade across your account. So you could simply put infusions on your gear, and then whatever character you progress your agony on, it would progress agony on all of your characters. That's kind of what I'm getting from this. Definitely check out the vendor. They're in Lion's Arch, Dive Master, Astora. Go check them out and upgrade your account, have a little bit of fun, their bit of progression. But it is expensive. The prices on the infusions, oh boy. They've gone up quite a lot. You'll be shelling out a fair bit of cash if you want. They've actually gone down a little bit. It was overall gold for a +10 earlier today, actually. But yeah, there you go. That's what's going on there. The Fractal, oh, okay. And you can watch the stream, but if you want to hear like more detailed and depressed thoughts on this. So they did make some changes here that are good. The boom corruption with Envy is reduced. It doesn't like instantly get you every single time now. It will still full corrupt you, and it's still very punching. I think they like reduced how often it happens, I think, or maybe made it ramp up a little bit slower. It's a little bit hard to tell. It's still absolutely brutal, and if you get Envy stacks, it's over pretty much. That hasn't changed, so I think that design issue is still there. It won't eat orbs that are 5 or less seconds old. So one of those, like that whole like insta collect angle doesn't really happen anymore. Good change. Epoch health goes down, also a good change here as well. You can't stand in the hitbox to avoid the wave of Envy, but you can dodge it. Yeah, you can dodge it, and it's not a full corrupt, so it's less punishing. Overall, I think that's actually a good change. It was kind of dumb that you were just like AFK in the hitbox. That's silly. I will be updating my guide, by the way. I'll probably just re-release the guide, including the challenge mode as well, because there are some strategies that you can 100% do for the challenge mode now. Because they fixed the gluttony bug, where you basically exploited to kill the challenge mode by killing the portals with lifesteal. Classic Guild Wars 2 bug, actually. But TLDR, that doesn't work anymore. You have to play it out normally now. But the intermission adds, health has gone down a lot. And you know what? Good change. But the thing is, if I'm being real here, I do not think this has been tested sufficiently well by ArenaNet. It's still an incredibly unfun fight. The intermission is still very long. Splitting up is difficult. Some of the ads are ignore immobilize, right? Like sometimes they just like run all over the place and kind of aggro on flesh golems, right? Like the small ads are weird. They kind of ignore CC sometimes. They're weird. It's very unclear how near you can let them get before the boss eats them and basically feasts on stacks. It is an absolute mess. I will never clear this Fractal again in its current state. It's not even particularly difficult, if I'm being real. It's not that hard. You do have to kind of have a comp for it. Like having double Reaper is amazing because it chills and slows the ads. It has that great cleaving, gives off quickness, gives off stability. So, you know, whatever you bring in there, it's also kind of cool. It's a power boss, as it turns out. Having power builds is amazing for the intermission and bursting down the champions. And if you have a bit of tech, you make sure that your power DPS get gluttony and rage. The healer soaks up the despairs and the enemies and stuff like that. Then you know what? You know, it's really not that bad. It's not that hard. Is it fun, though? Absolutely not. It feels gimmicky. It feels very punishing, and there's no recovery when things start to go wrong. To be honest, it's just not fun. Like having all of your boons cropped and you get like 10 seconds of immobilize, it's simply not an enjoyable experience. This fractal straight up is probably the only time I've actually been like super disappointed with Guild Wars 2. I don't think I've ever felt as negatively about any release in the game compared to this. This is probably my least favorite piece of content in the history of Guild Wars 2. Yes, I think this is better than the tunnel. Worse than the tunnel. Yes, I think this is worse than DRMs. That is how much I dislike this. I genuinely was just like, I felt nothing but frustration and anti-fun the entire time I was clearing this. I really do not like this at all. And the changes are good. I will respect that. They are good. I do like them. They're going in the right direction. And there is a version of this fight that I think could be fun, but this ain't it. There's a lot of design issues still. The ads barely have to go anywhere. Even if you kill them, the boss will still eat them. You can't remove the stacks whatsoever. The boon corruption is just kind of... It's so brutal and contrary to how you want to do the fight. If you get any envy sex, it's kind of over. It doesn't really ramp up, right? I mean, you can kind of survive a couple, but it's whatever. The intermission is super long. To be honest, there's also a bit of RNG there as well, because you can get the melee ads or the ranged ads. In general, I think the melee ads are way easier to deal with, as long as you have stability anyway. They do have some CC. I mean, look, I don't want to give like a full rant on everything I don't like about this fight, to be honest. Needless to say, I don't like it. It's not fun. And I want to clear, it's not about the difficulty. It's not super hard, to be honest. It's not. I don't think it's even the hardest Fractal CM, to be honest. If I'm being real, in terms of actual difficulty, it's just not an enjoyable experience whatsoever. I do not like the design, and these changes have improved it, but they have not rectified the issue. Not a fan. Okay, let me turn off the music. Okay, pull up. What? Oh my god. You know what? We're gonna have to do a segue. We're gonna have. Okay. So, here's the reality of the situation, guys. This is what your raid groups will look like from now on. They did it, guys. They added permanent underwear to the game. It's permanent bikinis in Guild Wars 2. Take a look at the gem prices. Look, this is the good news. I'm going to tell you the good news. I'll tell you the good news. Guild Wars 2 is now officially funded for the next 10 expansions. It is. It absolutely is. Gem prices were up to 210 gold, by the way, per 400 gems on launch. It was an absolute frenzy. And now everyone's going to be wearing bikinis until the rest of time, because that's what we do here in Guild Wars 2. This is a Kuma game. But shout out to all of the... Oh, look at this. Oh, yeah. You got to get those Norns. You got to get those, those Norns out there as well, guys. You got to have a wide range of appeal, you guys know what I'm saying? Bit of gachi going on. Love to see that. But yeah, the swimwear stuff is in the game too. But anyway, enough of that. I'll turn the instruments down, okay? We'll move on elsewhere. But yeah, this is going to be you're going to go into a raid, guys, and like all these big scary raid bosses like Sarus. Look, I can't wait to see the first Sarus CM, this terrifying demon, be taken down by 10 bikini-clad, okay, you know, like all the full, like, ooh anime character, okay, in Guild Wars 2, okay? It's out of control. It's completely out of control. On a side note, I will actually mildly complain about this. I do actually like it when the armor and items kind of at least try to stick to a fantasy setting, right? Like, let me be real here. I like the attempt, and yeah, I will admit Guild Wars 2 is a little bit far gone when you've got stuff like this. I like how there's perfect examples of everything I'm talking about, okay, in the Mistlok Sanctuary. Like, yeah, it's a little bit late for that at this point, but that doesn't mean I can't complain about it and you know, and mourn the loss of my sword and shield, armor and wizard hat video game, okay, right? Like, so yeah. GG, the Kumas won, whatever. So, moving on now to Sarus. Some really good changes here, actually. There was definitely a big kind of critique. Oh, I didn't actually turn off the instruments, did I? Yeah, so there was actually a really important critique here, was that the challenge mode and legendary mode were very close together in terms of difficulty. It didn't really offer that stepped difficulty between normal, then challenge mode, and then legendary. And that was 100% a valid criticism. Legendary and regular challenge mode were incredibly close together. I think these changes are very, very, very good, actually. So, let's talk about them. The insatiable effect of gluttony, 3 minutes instead of permanent now. This is a really big nerf to gluttony. I actually think this is not enough. And that would be my only critique, actually. Let me put it like this. I don't think this actually changes the strategy that much that you'll go for. I don't think you're ever empowering gluttony, and I don't think you're going to be doing greens. Certainly not on challenge mode. Not willingly. Anyway, that's for sure. But let's actually not get ahead of us, and let's talk about the changes first. So, not permanent gluttony. So in other words, they will eventually expire when you get to 10%. You probably won't end up with as many stacks. These gluttony stacks, basically, they just do taking damage. 350 per second per stack. Absolutely brutal. And if that stacks up infinitely and you have to do the 10% phase, good luck with that healing check. It is doable, but that's another story. Empowered stacks on Sarus. On his final 10% phase, he smashes every 4 seconds or so and gains additional stacks, so the next smash does more damage. Going up infinitely, of course, well, up to 99. That's 3 instead of 2. This is by far the biggest change here, in my opinion. Actually, no, that's not true. It is one of the biggest changes here. Probably the biggest overall. Basically, the healing check and survivability check, sub 10%, which is where most groups typically get stuck and start to fall apart, is big nerfed here. Bear in mind, none of this stuff happens on Legendary, by the way. This is just for challenge mode. Great change. Simple, but very effective. I really think this makes it much more accessible and requires much less precision that, you know, I think should be reserved for the Legendary. So big fan of that change, actually. A really big improvement. I like that a lot. Very cool. Similarly, health and toughness of malicious shadows has been nerfed. And I have done a bit of research on this. I've talked to people. The toughness is down big. Why is this exciting? People don't like Virtuoso, right? Well, check this out. Now, and I think we will actually start, you will start to see this actually start to pop up in pugs, maybe even stuff like, you know, weekly kills and speedruns and stuff like this. You can now annihilate these things with power damage, right? Absolutely annihilate them. So that means that you're going to be less reliant on Virtuoso for that cleave. You can probably start thinking about getting some other things into your composition. It doesn't entirely fix this issue, if I'm being honest, because, of course, Virtuoso is still going to be amazing for cleaving the ads. They have less health, right? So they're going to get nuked. And, of course, also having that ranged damage uptime with distortion is very important to the current meta strategy for this encounter. So I don't think it actually addresses that issue perfectly, but I do think it addresses it a little bit. And I think you will start to see, like, some other things start to creep in and see a little bit of play, actually, at least. Maybe not on progression. I'm going to be real here. People are still going to really lean towards that, you know, optimized progression experience because, you know, it's kind of hard, right? So people want to go in that direction, but it's certainly doable, and I think we will actually see some experimentation. Again, I think the big issue here is that I don't think it changes the fight mechanically. You're still going to do the empowered double wall strategy, and the issue there is that that strat is designed around Virtuoso. It's literally baked in around Virtuoso, and therefore, until the strategy changes, so maybe you would actually do Gluttony, maybe you would actually do greens, right? the problem is that Vert is going to dominate very hard. There are other strategies, like doing greens, for example, I think is much better for melee-oriented compositions in general, I think, because it kind of gives you a bit more uptime. You don't have to deal with the double beam. It's like a little bit easier to handle, I think, in that regard, but it is what it is. There's maybe... Well, I don't think there'll be more changes, by the way. This is probably it, but yeah. This is... it. And finally, they did actually change greens a little bit. I actually think this change is not far enough. I'll talk a bit why. So the penalty for failing a green is going downstate, basically, instead of fully dying. So failure to have enough people to absorb an attack will cause players to be downed instead of defeated, as will being hit by 2 of the attacks. Multiple failures or being hit by the skill more than 2 times will still cause players to be defeated. So basically, you could, if you do greens, you get 3 green circles, right? You need 3 people in each of them, or... you instantly die. The entire group wipes, right? That has now been changed. So, instead of that, what will happen is that if you overlap, or if you, you stack them, for example, you'll go downstate instead of completely dying instantly. If you do all 3, that's illegal. Now, actually, I was just thinking about this just now, and maybe I think there actually is some clever stuff you could do with this. Like, I think it will still be a bit of a hassle and people will prefer double wall, but I think there is some potential here for kind of doing some kind of crazy res strat, like using rebound on Tempest, or self-resing with Untamed, or just using Glyph of Stars, right? Or whatever, right? I think you could probably cook something that would kind of cheese this now pretty effectively. So maybe you'll see that, but again, it just feels a little over-complex, maybe. And still like a potential for pretty catastrophic failure if you get it wrong. It's not as deterministic. One thing that's really important, by the way, about the something that's really important about the unit strategy, which is basically like the portal with double wall strat. What's really important here is that it's very deterministic. Actually, it's like if you do the thing, it will die 100% of the time. Like, if you do the double wall strat, and you press your distort and your glint heal, and you do the portals correctly, you will have a 100% success rate. It is, like, ultra deterministic, like 0 RNG. That is really attractive to anyone doing progression, right? Like, you don't want to have randomness, like, you know, in any way. And that's the kind of the problem with greens, is that greens will introduce this kind of chaos into the encounter that is a bit tricky, I think, to deal with. And I think players aren't going to want to do that. It kind of just it also kind of requires you to kind of have people who know how to do it, and everyone needs to understand what you're doing. Whereas when you do, like, the portal strat with the walls, you need the Scourge and the Chrono to understand, and everyone else is kind of along for the ride, right? There's a lot of role compression. But anyway, look, I don't want to ramble on this for too long. It's good changes, and I actually really hope that the challenge modes and legendary modes in Jantheods are structured like this, so that all of the encounters have this fairly smooth difficulty curve, this, you know, this stairway that players are able to climb on their adventure, their journey, as opposed to right now, or the previous implementation, where it's absolutely brutal. You go from norm, which is just piss easy, up to challenge mode, which is like an absolute brick wall. So I like this. This is a good change. Very good change overall. Big fan. Okay, next up, the PvP stuff. So, big reward improvements, and wow, these are actually really, really good improvements. So, weapon costs are down massively. One-handed ascended weapon, 100 shards of glory in PvP. Wow. 400 down to 200 for a two-hander, and a full ascended set is 800 ascended shards of glory. So, bear in mind, where do you get these things? You, of course, get these things for doing your the pip rewards here. So you get what? You get 25, 75, 150. Oh, wait. Oh, no. I can't show you all of them. It just got, look, I think you get, like, 400. Or no, I think you get 600 or something like that for doing all of them, like a full season. Or maybe, I don't know. It is repeatable. You can farm these by doing PvP. It's a good time. You can go crazy. The season just swapped over to 3 video. I had this all planned. I was going to demo this beautiful reward structure, but now I can't because it's 3v3 now. Unlucky. You hate to see it. But anyway, basically, what does this actually mean? The PvP rewards are actually really cool. If you're a player who wants to try out PvP, you will now be rewarded for doing that. You will be able to farm Ascended gear way faster. You will be able to juice up big time. I really like these changes a lot. Kind of brings it more in line with how easy Ascended is to get everywhere else now. We kind of saw a lot of improvements to this, kind of over the years, right, to other rewards. PvP got left behind a little bit. And this is kind of like a bit of a halfway house compared to how overpowered the rewards were initially when they first added them to, like, the nerfs afterwards. So I think this is a really good change. You'll actually be very efficient in terms of gearing from playing PvP, even on the repeatable area, because you can just grind those shards over and over again. And, of course, you know, the gold is still pretty decent as well. So I think these changes are actually really good. And also, that's not all. You can also craft your gear much cheaper as well, because they are tripling the number of Grandmaster Mark boxes from 3 up to 9. That is big, by the way, because these are a pretty significant component in the price of a lot of crafted items for Ascended. And the fact that you'll be able to essentially get 9 of these per season for free is absolutely huge. That is really tasty, actually. You're going to be saving. Again, you're not going to be able to necessarily make gold from this, but you're going to be saving gold, right? And that's like the way that you have to think about earning gold in Guild Wars 2, is that a penny saved is a penny earned. And this will really help you out with that if you are crafting your Ascended gear. As well. And you also get reward track potions. So every 10 pips you earn, you will gain 3 potions of PvP reward, which is going to be what, 750 extra progress on your, which is what about just under 1/20th of a reward track every 10 pips. That's actually very significant, right? Like when you're winning a game, you're getting a good chunk of those pips immediately, right? You're going to actually be progressing through that very, very quickly, I think. And that's just on top of the regular rewards. And that's kind of the extra gold that you're getting. Your reward track's going, you're getting more items, more materials, more currencies, all that kind of stuff. This you're going to notice. This is going to be very noticeable, I think, actually, overall. And that's pretty hype, actually. Very, very good changes, in my opinion, to the good old PvP reward structure. We absolutely love to see that. And then finally, of course, we have the balance patch. And the balance patch was a little bit uninteresting, to be honest. It wasn't the most exciting patch ever, but we've got some cool stuff in here as well. So the big one is actually Firebrand. And I think this is very impactful. Check this out. Mantras now charge automatically in PvE only. So what does that mean? You use all your charges, and then in PvE, when the cooldown goes up, you don't have to rechannel it. It immediately flips over, and you can go through them again. Right? And look at this. The cone angle is up from 60 to 160 degrees. That's basically, it's going to hit basically everyone in front of you. This, funny enough, does have some ramifications in World versus World. It's going to be much easier to kind of land your stun break now with Mantra of Liberation. And of course, Solace is also very good in World versus World. But that's not the main point. The main point here is definitely PvE. I actually think this massively improves the playability of all Firebrand builds. Absolutely. I think Quickness Firebrand will still struggle to compete with Herald, but this makes it way better for consistency and just playability in general. In addition, because bear in mind, guys, they also buff Firebrand. In this patch, page costs are also going down on key utility skills like the Reflect, the Resistance, some of the healing as well. There are some big buffs, actually, to Firebrand this patch, and every Firebrand build is going to be better off for this. I think especially DPS Firebrand and especially Heal Firebrand as well. Massively improves playability of both of those builds, and I actually think significantly improved them. We were talking about this earlier on stream. I actually think that this significantly makes Firebrand a stronger build because of this change, actually, because it addresses that key issue of the boon application being a little bit finicky overall there. I do think Firebrand still needs a bit of help to really compete with the big dogs, with your Chrono, with your Scourge, with your Druid, but actually, I really like where this is going. To be honest, this is a very good change. It's kind of a sneaky change, right? It's like a change out of nowhere, right? That is actually really good overall. You know, they also made a couple of changes to Firebrand too, like might uptime is going to be a little bit better as well on Firebrand, like some more might on the Ashes of Justice ability, and of course you don't have to rechannel your Quickness mantra, so you just get more uptime on spamming that mantra, so you keep that might uptime a little bit better as well. Another thing for Guardian, a little extra here, is actually Rushing Justice, which is, this is kind of a playability improvement more than anything else. So this is the Willbender F1, the punch skill, right? And now you get 8 seconds of justice instead of just 6. This basically means it's going to be near permanent, essentially, if you have Alacrity and you're playing the Virtue Strength, which you do, of course, on Condi Willbender for Permeating Wrath. Big playability improvement, because it means that you kind of have extra seconds to land all of your abilities to trigger your burning. A huge amount of Guardian's burning always comes from that passive proc, like getting the hits in and then being able to kind of get that burning. So really big playability improvement, makes the build way easier to play, I think. And it is a good build, by the way. Like, it does have forced movement, which is the only thing that's a bit awkward about it. However, like, you know, surely, this has got to be enough for people to engage with this build. It's very good, actually. And this definitely makes the playability much better. In my opinion. In other news, they tried to buff Herald in PvP. Funnily enough, actually. Initially, I got really excited because I thought this was a nerf. I thought, they're nerfing Herald! Yes! This is so good! This is going to be healthy for PvE. Because I read, this skill now cleanses conditions from nearby enemies when used. Allies when used. This is the True Nature, the legendary Dragon F2, Glint F2, that is a boon extend. However, that is not what actually changed. It now just gives a triple AoE Condi cleanse on top of the boon extension. It's actually both. And, I thought about it. This is intentional, I think. It's to buff Herald in PvP, because Herald is not good in PvP. Struggles with Condis a lot. I think overall, and that's why. Not sure if Power Herald's going to come back into the mix, though, if I'm being honest. I think that Power Vindicator is super strong right now and kind of fulfills that role pretty well. Maybe we see this kind of come into the mix. This could help out Condi Herald, maybe, but that's not really in the metagame currently. I'm not sure if there's room for it in the current state of the game. But yeah, and I guess it does make Heal Herald a little bit better as well in PvE. But I mean, that build doesn't really need Condi cleanse. It cleanses Condis pretty well, to be honest. But I guess it's always nice. But I actually would like to see them change this ability so it isn't boon extension. It's definitely one of the things that you could shave away, I think, from Quickness Herald. That would be a way where you could kind of reduce some of its power to allow some of the other builds a little bit of breathing room. In that regard. But yeah, that is basically the news. Oh, I actually forgot to mention something very important. That's where we're going back here. I actually want to talk about the Sarus CM thing a little bit. And I know this doesn't affect a lot of people, but I do want to point it out. There was an achievement called Embodiment of Sin, and it's still in the game, obviously, where you have to do Sarus challenge mode with empowering all of the sins, right? So it's like basically like a special hard mode achievement that you can do to get a title Embodiment of Sin. These changes have brutally nerfed Embodiment of Sin. And that's not inherently problematic, by the way. It's not supposed to be super, super hard. It's supposed to be a little fun challenge, right? That you can do. A little bit of extra thing, different activity, different flavor, different experience that you can do. I'm not gonna lie, it's not that much fun, but I appreciate the idea and the sentiment. Now, the problem I have with this is actually not that it got nerfed. That's fine. That's not a problem. What I don't like is that I think it would have been really good for this to have been communicated ahead of time, that ArenaNet were planning to make these changes. And let me say why. There are a lot of teams that are progressing this, going for the title, and obviously didn't know. And yeah, you could argue you should have seen that one coming. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I was expecting a nerf as well at some point. I think a lot of people were. But the issue is that there was no warning. And this means that groups that are kind of close actually got screwed. And funnily enough, there's actually a player that I'm sure all of you are aware of who is in that situation. Our favorite gamer, Scourge Enjoyer. It's Lara, actually. Lara was progressing this, and her group was at 10%. They were actually kind of getting to grips with it and kind of getting towards the end of the progression for them. Although, well, 10% could take a while. But you know what I mean? They were getting there, and they were progressing. And this fight does not exist. The fight that they were progressing is now gone. They will never be able to, overcome that challenge, right? And when that happens mid-progression, I think that's a little bit of a feels bad. To be honest, that's not ideal when that happens. So I think communication about stuff like this would be a good idea with this kind of stuff. But yeah, that's it. There is also something else I want to talk about. Okay, we're not getting baited here. Okay, we've got to get unbaited. So, a couple of things did happen. So, Elementalist had a couple of changes to some of its trait lines and a couple of the weapons. And I think you early mains are going to like this. So, a couple of things happened. Scepter buffs happened, with power damage in particular. And also air overload changes. And guess what? Oh yeah, it's back. Fresh air staff is absolutely a thing, and this is equally as important. The build that I have here right now is not necessarily the optimal damage build, but check this out. It is, in fact, an extremely easy to play, highly effective DPS build for Elementalist. Where did I leave my... Ah, yeah, here we go. It actually uses Scepter Warhorn. I think you can play Staff as well, but we've got Scepter Warhorn here for now. And it uses the Water trait line, which has some more damage modifiers now. You have like 10% damage here. You have 10% damage here. But look at this! You have Soothing Power as well. So you have 300 more Vitality. You have the 40% damage increase from Tempest as well, which I think is rather exciting. Let me actually put the build back to how it should be. Really exciting there to have all of that kind of stuff. You actually heal yourself a lot when you go into water, and you apply Soothing Mist to your entire team, which significantly heals you and also your team for a little bit of hybrid support kind of mixed into it as well. Really exciting build, and there's actually a couple of things, actually. You know, like I said, you can play Fresh Air Staff now. That's absolutely a thing, kind of that old school build. This build is ridiculously easy to play. It basically involves, like, spamming Overload Air, your good air skills, going into fire, using these abilities, and then just, like, rinsing and repeating. It's literally, like, a very face roll build, to be honest. And you even have a bunch of HP as well. And you heal your team, and you heal yourself. What more do you guys want, okay? Seriously, what more do these Elementalist mains actually want here? You probably want to take a different elite skill for more damage, but maybe you want to roleplay and play Rebound, okay? This build, someone was testing it from the chat. They were messing around. It does 38k DPS with the Water trait line. It's absolutely wild. The Fresh Air Staff builds are doing 44k, I think, or something crazy. Absolutely wild. To be honest, like, if this is not going to make LE mains happy, then nothing will. Well, you guys have got Spear coming up as well, so look, you're really getting the full package. It's you know, CMC mains LE, what can I say? But anyway, that was another kind of little ramification of this patch that I think is worth bringing up, is that there's actually, it did create and nudge some of these new Elementalist build variants into existence, which I think is incredibly exciting. Still need some heal Tempest buffs, though. Come on! Let's give ammo to shouts. Yeah, let's go! But anyway, that, I think, is going to just about do the news. Pretty neat patch. Neat patch, actually. Balance patch, pretty decent. Pretty cool stuff over there. You know, it's pretty cool. You know, it's pretty cool. I would say overall, nice changes to Sarus CM. Little experiment with the infusions over there. They did actually kind of fix Lonely Tower. I'll begrudgingly admit it, some reward changes. But yeah, overall, really solid patch. Actually, definitely looking forward to the beta. I think I absolutely am. I'm sure it will. I'm sure it'll be very exciting. We're gonna mess around with stuff. Definitely be sure to tune in for all of that. Oh, and yeah, daily reminder that Armor of Earth is now a 6 skill. Look at this, like 10 stacks of stability on a 25-second cooldown, and it breaks stun, and it gives you like 7k barrier when you have every boon in the game. Yo, this one's pretty good. But anyway, I keep derailing myself, guys. It's derail central today, but we're finally gonna re-rail it and say that is the end of the news. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys have learned something from listening to this. I will, of course, be covering the revelations regarding player housing as well, so stay tuned for that video as well. That will be unleashing very, very shortly. It will probably be out by the time you even hear this. Wow, isn't that exciting? But anyway, until then, guys, that is going to just about do it for now. Those are my thoughts on the changes. Subscribe, leave a comment, like the video, buy the game using my referral link, join the channel, go on Patreon, join my Discord, watch the stream. You guys know what to do, okay? That's it. That's the news covered over here on YouTube. A couple of confused emojis being read. Who's confused about this? These are good changes. But anyway, that'll do it. Thanks for watching, gamers. I'll see you next time.